My name is Mike Monaco, 1440 Rising Road, McDonald, PA. Excuse me, 15057. What I'd like to bring up is some continuing issues, I guess, with the vote to appeal the Northwest Liberty decision, and wanted to make some comments for your consideration and basically get them on the record if I may.
Just to be specific, they voted to file an application for re-argument, which was denied last week. There's been no appeal decision made yet that will be discussed in executive session tonight.
Well, I'd like to, actually have some issues with the process itself. Basically, I'll leapfrog most of the information I had, because my understanding was, in looking at the case law, that the zoning board doesn't have standing in the condition of an appeal. The only agency or the only municipality that can appeal is the township. And I have case law that indicates that. So I'm kind of confused why that decision was made and why that case law wouldn't apply in this situation.
If you want to provide me a case citation, I'd be glad to look into it.
Well, okay. And then I got another issue. Okay. Even if it was to go forward and you were to vote, my understanding is the only two members of the board that the court recognized that could vote on this issue was Chairman Augustine and member Cecil. And that was in the decision that was handed down, saying that the other two board members were not non-participating. So I'm kind of also interested in who voted for the original to carry this on. And if I may, if I can poll and find out how that was dealt with.
If you stick around, we're going to do a motion to ratify their vote on the application.
Could you speak up, please? Are you talking about the original decision?
In the court decision, it was stated that only Chairman Augustine and member Zuzik voted to deny
the initial one was just.
Can't hear you.
Yeah, you're right. Those two voted. I didn't vote because I was an alternate, and we had.
I was absent.
Right.
You were absent.
So my
He was
question is,
absent the first meeting, and then it proceeded for 3 additional meetings.
But under zoning law, I was a participant, and I'm allowed to participate. I just didn't have voting rights.
then why did the court make an exception to you and, or you the alternate? I'm
Yeah,
sorry,
the alternate.
I apologize. That they were non-participating. And that's really in the decision.
I mean, I'm participating in the vote, but again, I'm allowed to participate like I did tonight. If you notice, and I wouldn't have voted tonight because we have a quorum. But I'm allowed to participate if you define participation.
Okay, well, I guess that leads up to what was the quorum that voted to go forward with the appeal last, what, 40 days ago? Who voted to go forward?
I don't think anybody voted. No. We didn't have a meeting.
Was there a polling from the solicitor to allow that to go forward? I mean, you had to approve it. They couldn't just do it automatically. And that was discussed at the supervisor meeting with John Smith, and he said that he discussed that with your solicitor and proposed that should go forward, which also was against some of the planning code. So there was no vote?
We didn't have a meeting since the last time.
Our last meeting was in September.
There was a poll taken by
Right.
telephone to see who was in favor to be ratified by a vote tonight. We didn't have a meeting in the meantime to vote, so they're going to ratify that decision tonight.
I think
And there was time constraints, and it had to be pulled over the phone because of the time constraint, because the next meeting was after the time limit.
And I guess that's where the confusion was, because there's been a lot of comment that it really wasn't the two members that I brought up, you and Chairman Augustine, that actually were polled. And that goes to whether the quorum was met in reference to the decision that was made by the court, that the only two individuals that could do that were Chairman Augustine and member Cecil. And that's really one of the points that I wanted to bring up, and wanted to find out why that still is not in effect now.
Which decision do you refer to?
It's the, I guess this is the decision by the court where they overturned they favored Mark West and overturned the 22 items that they cited that needed to come back to the zoning board for review for the application. It was dated September 26, 2014.
All right, what does that have to do with their application to re-argue?
Again, my understanding is the quorum for the individuals that were allowed to vote for that were only the ones that were participating that were cited in the opinion, which is Chairman Augustine and member Cecil.
I'll be glad to look into it for you, but I'd have to read this out again.
John Smith says all the time.
Well,
Sure.
then how can we have a ratification if,
I'll look into it for you.
That's what John Smith tells us all the time.
well, how can you have a ratification vote if you don't know who is supposed to vote? Seems to be odd. Well, a lawyer doesn't seem to be appropriate.
I'll take it into consideration.
Okay? The other issue I have is also in the last, unfortunately, I know you guys weren't involved in that, but the last supervisor meeting, it was declared by Supervisor Fisher that she went out of her way to contact members of the board, which unfortunately, and this is not reflecting on you guys, in looking at the planning code, that is also not allowed. And if there was discussion concerning that, they really have to recuse themselves from the vote. And if that was part of the responsibility of, I guess, you, which is the solicitor, to make sure that that didn't happen or to poll the individuals as that occurred. And has that influence been made?
These gentlemen know not to be influenced by anybody but themselves, and I can't speak to any conversations that any of them have in their private time.
All right. And one of the last issues, and this is all coming from the Pennsylvania Municipality Planning Code. Excuse me, I'm losing my voice. This is concerning finance, and this was also brought up at the supervisor meeting, that one of the issues here is financing this. If this was go to fruition and you actually go through an appeal and you incur a cost to do this, as of right now, the budget for the zoning board it's over budget. And any statutory issues, meaning any property owner that brought something in front of the board has to be funded by the supervisors. But in this issue, this was purely subjective and elective, and whether your firm, if you're going to go forward, has approached the supervisors for an indication of how they're going to pay and if they're going to pay. Because my understanding under the planning code, that they don't have to pay. That because of the standing issue, that they're the only ones that really can make the decision.
I don't believe that either you or I have that decision-making authority right now, so I'm not going to answer that question.
Okay?
You haven't answered any.
I have no responsibility to answer
This
any
is not
question.
turning into a shouting match. So he has the floor.
Okay.
He'll address. Anyone else?
This matter is currently still in litigation, and I do not have to answer any questions, but I will certainly entertain these questions.
That's fair. How would I get you? I'll send you the case law. How do I get it to you?
I'd be glad, if you have the case citation, I'll just write it down right now.
I'll give you my paperwork.
Okay.
Just give me a second to make sure I get all my points. It's really the issue. I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you.
At this point in the meeting, I would like to make a motion that we have an executive session of the board.
I second.
Motion being made, seconded, we'll take a 5-minute recess. So the executive session is ended. The board took advice from, legal advice from the council. And the board has two motions it has to consider tonight.
I make a motion to ratify the filing of the application for the re-argument of the Mark West case.
I'll second.
The motion being made and seconded, all in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
I abstain.
I also make a motion to apply for,
To file a petition for
File.
allowance of appeal.
file a petition for allowance of appeal.
I'll second.
The motion being made and seconded, all in favor, vote by saying aye.
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 I abstain.
What does an allowance for appeal mean?
That's to file an appeal to the Supreme Court.
I thought he was all good. Actually, I have to express an objection to this whole thing. Because if case law says that they're not allowed to go forward, why don't you know case law? I cite the things right here. I mean, it's in black and white that the zoning board doesn't have standing. And why don't you know that?
Sir, I'm not going to argue with you.
Okay. Well, then I'm going to give you the code. You'll have to, because at this point, I think your advice is out of line. I think it's misrepresentation of what case law is. And you have these gentlemen voting for that, and it's wrong. So how do we correct that deficiency?
They're giving me approval to file it. I'm not going right now to file an appeal. If I determine, in the next, I have 30 days, in the next 30 days,
Okay.
that we do not have standing, then we will not file the appeal.
Then I need to give you, before the end, I'll give you the case sites.
If there's no other action to come before the board tonight, I'll declare the meeting adjourned.